Welcome back to another episode of Craft on Tapped, where we talk about growth marketing for RIAs. Your host, Stephen Beach and Faustin Weber. Today we're going to tackle a great question that is a really meaty topic. Should you include pricing on your firm's website? And if so, how? And to what degree? We're going to talk about this because we don't claim to have the right answer here. We don't claim there really is no right or wrong answer. I would say we're going to talk about how to evaluate whether you should include pricing information on your website, and then if so, some different ways that you could position it. And then we're going to talk about some examples of our clients and some other firms in the space that we've seen that we think have done it well, and share those. So hopefully gives you some insight. You'll need to apply this to your firm, to your situation, to your target persona, obviously, but hopefully it kind of brings forward a topic that sometimes is a little bit avoided maybe, or just kind of on the back burner, and we wanted to just get into some of the advantages versus disadvantages of pricing. So
yeah, you want to talk a little bit about like why we're even discussing this. I know you were just reading through a Reddit post on the CFP subreddit where someone was asking this, right? And then we just did that Ensemble Practice survey. So you want to share a little bit about that? Yeah,
exactly. There's a Reddit post that simply just said, should I put pricing on my website? And it's this pretty long thread, and some people are adamant no, and some people are adamant yes, you should. Yeah. And so it's anything like that, I guess, that has that polarity to it, I think makes for a great topic. And again, like for us to share our take on it. And then, yeah, we were inspired by a couple things. The last episode we talked about the Ensemble study that talked about they did a survey of investors, and specifically for the affluent investors from 1 million to 5 million in investable assets. 44%. Let me frame this up. That study, they said, name your top 3 criteria when you are evaluating a new financial advisory firm. You can pick 3 out of, I think, 12 options, 10 or 12 options. 44% of those people, those affluent investors from 1 to 5 million, 44% of them checked pricing. So we know that it's something that prospects, if you're in that space, like if that is your ideal target, 1 million to 5 million investable assets, we know that those people want to see some information about pricing. But what's fascinating is, to us anyways, is there's hardly any firms across the financial advisory space, there's hardly any RIA firms who are doing this. So there's this huge disconnect. There's we're clearly seeing that prospects want it, and they want to understand, they want to at least understand your answer to pricing and your fees. But then barely any firms are giving it to them. And so I think, first of all, that's a big opportunity for the firms that want to embrace this, for those who are a little bit more forward thinking or want to be thoughtful in their content marketing. And then another thing that we were inspired by, I think, was, I come from a B2B marketing space. Originally I was in sales, and then I kind of shifted into digital marketing, initially to generate my own leads so I could stop cold calling. That's a whole other story. But I was dependent on cold calling and trade shows and literally knocking on people's doors, and trying to get attention, trying to market with a hammer, as they say. I found the term inbound marketing that HubSpot coined back in 2010, 2011, and kind of taught myself the world of inbound marketing. And I shifted into, kind of a blend between a salesperson and a digital marketer, frankly, because I found that, the more digital marketing work I did, that answered my prospects' questions and it answered their challenges, that showed them how my product solved for their challenge, they started coming to me. So then it turned from marketing with a hammer into marketing with a magnet. Like, they were coming to me. That's the whole idea of inbound marketing. You give them what they are seeking, and then nurture them and help them along their journey, and then they become a lead then, as opposed to me as a sales rep telling them, what the right answer was. We know that people want to figure out what the right answer is for themselves. So I think that all still applies in this world, even though that was a B2B situation. Yeah. It all still applies, I think, Foss. But the thing that inspired me back then too was there's a guy named Marcus Sheridan, okay, and back then he called himself the sales lion. and he's a really good personal branding guy. So if you just Google him, Marcus Sheridan, the sales line, you'll see. He was like a mentor for me early on, and he is a really good thought leader that I think, again, it's B2B, but he's kind of blended it now. It's B2C as well. Some of the things that he's talked about and that he's written about and that he speaks on, he talks about the top 5 content marketing topics that we should be embracing, right? And so these are inspiring to us, and that's kind of weaves into this topic about pricing, because his top 5, right? His if you've been to Africa, or if you've heard of a safari, they call it the Big 5, like the big 5 animals that you want to go see on a safari. His Big 5 as the sales lion would be being open to talking about the problems, shortcomings, and drawbacks of what you sell, like sharing the potential downsides of what you sell. Number 2, comparisons. People want comparisons. They want to see why product A is different than product B, what kind of the pros and cons are, so that they can understand the differences for themselves. They don't want to be told that product A is better than product B. They want to understand, what the potential drawbacks are of each product. And I'm saying product, but it could be applied to service, obviously. Number 3, out of the Big 5, produce the best of list. So a best of list would say, for us, the top 20 marketing agencies for financial advisors. We could write a list like that, and then share it with people and say, there's pros and cons to each of these agencies. Here's what we think. It's kind of like a research piece that you're doing, and again, in an effort to answer their question of comparing and helping them kind of make the decision on their own. Number 4, reviews. So testimonials, case studies, helpful reviews. Review sites are really, we've seen those pop up and become more and more important in our world. Wealth Tender, Google reviews, this kind of thing. And then number 5, and here's kind of the tie back to us today, is cost and pricing. That's his Big 5. So explaining cost and pricing and what factors make those numbers go up or down, right? So at least addressing the answer, or at least addressing the question. And this is a really key nuance, I think. You don't have to, when we say, like, should we put pricing on our website, just to frame this up, you don't have to spell out exactly down to the penny, what you're going to charge for what service, and it can come off like a commodity almost. But you do need to at least, or the idea here is, if you're going to embrace pricing, you're at least addressing the question. So we can do that a number of ways, and we'll talk about that, but you're at least answering their question of, how much do you guys charge? What do your fees look like? And what do I get for it? Okay. And so at least you're answering their question and meeting them where they are. And again, we know that this is what they want because they're telling us on surveys, and time and again, we've seen study after study that says, people do want to see pricing information. Not that they're, one other thing on my soliloquy here. Not that they're price sensitive, but they at least, that's not exactly what we're saying. We're saying they want to understand how the pricing and the fee structure works. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're price sensitive. And if you say, 1% versus 80 basis points, like that, they're going to run away. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that they are seeking this information. And some firms are kind of embracing that and running with it and at least answering that question. Okay, so that's kind of what inspired this whole topic for us.
Yeah, I would say it's so interesting when you talk through those 5 pillars. The words that come to mind for me are just being completely and totally transparent as a way to build trust and credibility with the visitor to the website or the potential prospect that you're working with. And then to be able to educate as part of that level of transparency about even what's out there. And I think that's a really striking thing for B2B, but it really resonates with the advisory firms we work with, in the sense of, like, a lot of the people, and I know this just from talking to our clients, they don't even have the first clue when they first start talking to advisory firms about what they offer, like even what's out there, right? The majority of them come in understanding financial planning or investment management as just getting somebody to manage their investments. It's only after consistent education with the firms that they're working with that offer this like comprehensive financial planning approach. It's only after working with them for a while that they even understand the value of what they are getting versus some of their colleagues, their friends, their family members who are not getting it. And so that's one of my big takeaways from this like 5 pillars that Marcus Sheridan shares, even though it's for the B2B world, is that you can gain a lot for your potential prospects just by laying it all out there. And pricing is a key component of that, right? Is just helping them understand the pricing. I would say, the obvious disadvantage, and this is what the pushback that we get when we have this conversation with a number of our clients, when we're talking about putting pricing on the site, is because it's so misunderstood, because there's such a lack of clarity across the industry, because all the advisors out there are so different in a lot of cases. One RIA versus another RIA might be similar, but compared to all the different options they have, commission-based advisors, it's very difficult to help them understand really what the value is before the pricing's on there. And so I know that there's the worry that they're going to disqualify potential prospects that may be qualified. Like people are going to self-qualify themselves out because they're going to see the pricing without fully understanding what they get, right? Without fully like being able to unpack the pain points or the challenges that they're facing and how they might be able to get them solved with the firm. And so that's the main disadvantage here, right? If you're thinking of a pros and cons list, the pro of the pricing is that you lay it all out there, and that we've seen from that survey, people are looking for it. More affluent investors are looking for the pricing on the site. The disadvantage would be, you got to make sure that you're fully laying out exactly what it means, or else you're going to potentially drive some confusion, right? Would you say that's a pretty good list of the advantages and disadvantages, or what else would you add to that?
Yeah, I guess potential advantage would be, you meet the prospect where they are. And from what we've seen with like the clients that we've worked with in the past that have embraced the price of the public pricing, that becomes, behind the homepage, it becomes the second most popular page on the website as far as traffic and time spent on the page. So people are clearly consuming it. And again, we're like meeting them where they are. That would be probably the biggest potential advantage, yes. I guess disadvantage too, I would say, there's a bit of a mental hurdle here. And it depends on your business model, of course, and it depends on, who you are as an advisor. But you have to evaluate it. Do I just have a little bit of head trash here around, I've been taught to, withhold pricing close to the vest, until I get someone in a discovery call or until I've qualified them, and then I share with them information. Once they've shared information with me, only then do I give them the information. That might be a mental hurdle for some people. That would be tough to clear, right? You have to be vulnerable with it, in which, again, like depending on your firm and where you are, you may not even be able to fully, capitalize on this. But the firms that do, you do have to be vulnerable to some level of sharing information with people and taking that risk, if you will, like that. Some people might see it and be confused, or might see it and be turned away. And kind of weighing that, I think weighing those risks versus the potential advantage. I would just add that, like, there's kind of a mental piece to it, I guess.
Yeah, nice. All right, so Sheridan, just following along with what we've learned, he's got these really interesting 5 levels of pricing. So I feel like it really kind of works as a backbone for 5 levels that we've come up with for advisory firms, right? So let's talk just about Sheridan's 5 levels of pricing, and he's talking primarily about professional service industries here, that what they should follow. So the first one is level 0. That is not even level 1, right? Level 0, it's the absolute bottom. You have a get pricing button that leads to a contact form. That's it. So in his opinion, in his view, this creates, issues and barriers because you're making visitors jump through hoops and actually get on the call with you before they get any sort of information about pricing. So, he's very biased towards, hey, don't do this, right? And so we'll talk about that as it relates to advisory firms. I will say this is how the majority of advisory firms function, right? And we want to lay out all the value proposition on the website, and then you have to book a call to really understand or know anything more about how the pricing model works. Then it goes up to level 1. And the way he describes this is you have a comprehensive pricing page that educates visitors about your industry's pricing landscape. What drives costs up and down? Why do prices vary so dramatically between providers, and what the typical price range is? And I love this. I mean, to me, it's just kind of like this monumental jump upwards, right? It's like from not having anything at all to having a lot of education about the industry. If you go to Marcus Sheridan's site right now, he's got keynote pricing for him. But if you go to the pricing page, he has so much information about what you can expect at different price points, how, the pros and cons of getting a speaker at this price range versus this price range, what you can expect from a speaker of this price quality versus this price quality. He really lays it out in a super comprehensive guide so that you, as someone that's coming in trying to book a call or trying to book a speaker for a certain event, you get a lot of really good insights about even what you can be looking for. And that's what he's advocating for as level 1, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that big jump from like nothing at all to like educating about the landscape?
It's like it's more like 0 to 1, be more like 0 to 60. There is a lot. It takes a lot to get to level 1. And again, for our industry, for RIAs, it's a little bit different, but that's what we'll get into. We've come up with our own levels, so we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, level 1 for kind of professional services providers, to him is if you're in level 1, that puts you in the top 10% of companies overall. So 90% of companies aren't even getting to level 1. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So it's like a key differentiator right away. Okay, and then going up to level 2, very similar to level 1, but you have videos that talk about each of the services. So you like complement the text or the visuals that you're showing on the website, and you have built out videos that help supplement and complement what you have on the site. He says that positions you in the top 3% of your industry. So you've gone from the top 10% to the top 3%. And then level 3, which is his 4th level, right? Because remember, we started at 0. This level 3 would be a pricing estimator tool. So this would be like some sort of app or something, some back-end coding that is pretty easy to do now with Claude and ChatGPT, where you can do all these like, apps that you can sort of like vibe code is the word that's being used. But you create some sort of tool so people can see and estimate different elements of whatever service you're offering, and they can get a price, not just a range, but like a price for what they're looking for. And then level 4, he says, is not available in all industries, not possible, but he sees that as like the pinnacle, the top level, displaying exact pricing for your products or services. So I think it's really interesting to see like it becomes more and more clear, more and more transparent. And in his eyes, and this is like, we believe this as well, right, Stephen? In his eyes, the more exact and the more clear you can be, the better, more trustworthy, more credible you become, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I guess the more relevant content you put out there that is helpful and educational to your target persona, the more trustworthy, authoritative, and credible you become. Yeah, I think maybe I just restated exactly what you just said. But yes, that's the whole idea of strategic, high-level content marketing and putting yourself in a position, where you meet your target persona.
Nice.
So that's a lot of work to get to that point, but that's the goal. Yep.
It's okay to repeat it because that's another key tenet of marketing is just repetition, right? The same message over and over again. So I appreciate you restating it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we created a what is this? This is a mouthful. Craft on Tap: 5 levels of website pricing for your advisory firm. Yeah, that's really good. Really good branding.
I feel like that just rolls right off the tongue.
It definitely rolls off the tongue. Okay, so level 0, right? To just kind of following in the model of Sheridan. It's where most of the advisory firms fall. It's not having a good sense of pricing at all, right? Not even a good understanding of any percentage, or is it flat fee or not flat fee? It's just, you got to book a call, right? That's where we see most of the firms for a lot of good reasons sometimes, right? Where the partners are not comfortable with it. I think we've talked in a previous episode, Stephen, about how, this is oftentimes a partner decision where there isn't consensus. There's not agreement about what to do. And so we end up leaving it off, right?
Yep. Yeah, that happens. Like you said, there's a lot of variables, in making this kind of decision. And again, most times I think the way I was taught when I was coming up as a sales rep, again, not in this space, but as a sales rep, was like, why would you give away our pricing information? That's the whole point that's like how you're going to hook people and bring them in, and you want to hold that, you want to kind of hide behind it a little bit until you get information from them. You got to qualify them first, and then you give them the pricing information. Otherwise, you might lose them, and they might just run away and go to the next group. So that's how a lot of us were taught, probably. It might just be in an evolution of that thinking that we've seen over the last 15 years, especially. Yes. Okay. So that's level 1, that's level 0.
Yep. And then the second level 1, you would have ranges again. So just like in the last 5 levels we shared where there was a big jump up. So you go from nothing to, in our level 1, you have ranges of pricing and the methods to try to explain how clients will be charged. So the way we see this is if it's a flat fee range for specific services, you explain that, you lay that out, right? You give a range for what the services, the potential lower end and the higher end would be. Yeah. And then if it's percentage of assets, which is where a lot of our clients are at, based on the number of assets, you lay that out, you bullet point it out exactly what the percentage would be.
Right, like where the breakpoints are. Yeah.
Yeah. So just, a couple of examples of this that we've seen. Let me just see if I can.
And while you go, I was just going to say, in this level, you're not necessarily writing exactly, what you're going to charge and exactly what they're going to get, but you are at least answering the question. You're getting closer to that. There might still be some variance in here, but that's why you give a range, or you at least say, typically we see something like this, for this fee, typically we would see these services, or for a fee that ranges between A and B, usually we're looking at services, D, E, F, so on. So at least you're answering the question and giving them something to grab onto, to kind of wrap their head around at least.
So here's an example from one of our clients, Instrumental Wealth in Tampa, Florida. They do an exit planning particular flat fee service that they provide, and it's pretty comprehensive in planning. And so this is a way that we've worked with them to lay it out on their website. So this would be like the level 1 pricing that we were just talking about. You can see that there's a number, you feel a sense of value in all that you get, right? So we tried to help clarify what you would get before we share the pricing range, which is a key component. So it has everything from the value, wealth, profit gap analysis to the core planning services of goal setting, asset allocation, asset location, all the way down through legacy planning. And because Instrumental Wealth has a lower range based on which services the person requires or the individual family requires, they have a low range, and then they also have the higher range. So this is one way to do it, just kind of lay it out. There could be some enhancements to this, right? I guess I'm not showing that on the page itself. We really do a nice job laying out exactly what these different components are as you're scrolling down through the page, so that you get to the pricing at the bottom. So in that way, right, following the normal sales process, you are at least able to kind of resonate with the challenges of the visitor on the website and to understand how the firm solves it before you get down to the pricing range. Did I say that okay, Stephen? Yeah,
that's right. We can include a link to this page in the show notes too, so people can kind of play around. But I think when I look at this page, because we're looking at a screenshot of it right here, right? So when I look at this, my first impression is holy cow! I get all these things. This is a lot of stuff. This is I didn't even think about some of these things as a business owner for preparing for an exit. I may have not even thought about a couple of these bullet points on here, and it just feels like, okay, this is a lot. So that's part of it too. Like we're presenting it in a positive light, such that it shows that you're getting a lot of value for the fee, and then giving them a fee range. Yeah, exactly. It's not a quote, it's not a proposal, it's not set in stone, but at least they have some understanding, and they can kind of, chew on that while they go through the rest of the process.
Yeah, and they can self-qualify themselves too, right? Like, oh, that's within my wheelhouse, or like that's out. And when you get the discovery call that comes in, you have more assurance, I think, as the advisor handling the sales call, that they've probably seen the pricing before you get on, right? So that you can just move forward.
Right.
Another example is a Brooklyn FI. And this is something that we help them with, is just establishing these 3 different tiers. So they have a startup tier, a core tier, and an elite tier. I think part of the advantage here is that you can, as a visitor to their site, you can see that, at this lower asset range, here's what I get and here's what the pricing is going to be. But it doesn't disqualify those in a much higher asset range, right, where they can see so much more value that they get. So that was one of the key characteristics of us helping them put this together, is that they could sort of apply to a lot of people across a number of different demographics, right, that could come in. I really like in this tier not just what's included in like a simplified, concise way of dedicated CFP professional, 6-month tax forecasting, cohesive investment management, right? Very similar to the instrumental wealth example. But then also how there's this self-qualifying, maybe a right fit for people in this asset range, people that have complex equity versus not complex equity. And so there's this whole like transparency here that you can see, but people are also educating themselves about even what's offered and what's out there, and even what a planner does. Right. Stephen?
Yeah, I think that's a couple of good points. What a planner does, there's a lot of education just in this chart here that's showing you, oh wow, actually, again, same thing. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I guess a financial planner could help me with that. So there's that, and then also I think these guys did a great job of thinking through this in a way that doesn't alienate anyone in particular, right? So they've got target persona. And they are growing in a strategic way, but also like they serve multiple different types of people, and if you don't fit in a certain space here, I feel like the way it's worded and the way it's structured here, it doesn't feel like it alienates anyone in particular, which is kind of tricky to do, I think, because you can go down this path of laying out like exactly what you're doing and who it's for and your services and so on, and then it can kind of feel like, this may not be for me, and you don't really know where you fit, they're making me choose a bucket. But I think this one does a good job of avoiding that, or sort of just laying it out in a more natural way where it's not alienating to anyone in particular. So, which is, I think, a big win for this pricing page.
Something interesting too in the way that they laid out their pricing is they didn't give like a lot of really detailed specifics of ranges or anything like that, because they're more in a percentage based of AUM, right? But they talk about tiered asset management, and then they lay out if there's a separate fee for tax prep or not. So again, you're building that credibility and trust, just helping clarify it for the individual. We'll say for this client in particular has their pricing page right up at the top of their website, so you can't miss it, right?
It's in the navigation. It's like home, services, pricing is right up there. Yep. Yeah,
and that's a whole nother conversation about if that's right for your firm or not, putting it right out there. This firm, really embraced the transparency, putting it right up there. Potential drawback for this is, you really haven't had a chance to make your case, I would say, on the website. There's a natural progression as people learn more about your firm, understand the challenges that you solve. Then you get to pricing, versus if you just jump right into pricing. But I will say, I know in talking with this clients that one of the words, the comments that's always stuck out to me is a woman that said, the pricing page helped me to actually understand what an advisor does, because I had no idea what an advisor does. So even to see the specifics laid out in this way helped me to feel more confident in booking a call with them. And that was like exactly what Marcus Sheridan's talking about, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a piece of education. Yeah, it's an educational piece at the end of the day. The other thing I'll say too, with BKFI in particular, like the way that we're showing the pricing page, obviously, but then there's a lot of user experience and navigation in mind here too, because it's not just that one page where some firms, you could throw up a pricing page and it's in your top navigation. People go there, like you said, the potential risk is they see it, they're either confused or it feels like, it's out of their wheelhouse or whatever, and then they bounce off, But BKFI did it differently where there's multiple other pages and sections of their website that kind of let you go further, There's a table on their investment management fees. There's a simplified pricing calculator on there. Where you can kind of put in your situation. Are you single or are you married? Do you have equity comp or do you not? These kind of things. And do some rough tax fee estimating as well. So, but those are kind of in separate places, but it's done in a way that I think naturally leads the person down this path, of learning more. So it's less likely that they will go to that page and bounce off, right? Because they're being drawn in, and they're being drawn in further, which is one of our goals with the website is just the more pages that we can allow a person to consume, and the more videos, the more copy they read, and so on and so forth, the more qualified they become. They're like self-qualifying. The further they go, and we've seen that the more pages someone views, the higher the lead becomes much more highly qualified, I should say, right? So that's a very direct correlation, right? The more pages somebody views, the quality of the lead goes up. So that's also done on purpose. And again, they did a great job of kind of thinking through that and then laying it out with the user experience in mind. Yeah,
nice. Okay, so level 0, again, just to remind you, the first level is nothing at all. The second level, or level 1, is the examples that we've just showed. You lay out the range, the pricing, explain what they get. Level 2 would be including video, right? Just like to follow Sheridan's levels. And, we really like what Root Financial has done. Now, Root Financial does it a little bit differently than BKFI, and I'm just pulling it up here for our video watchers, where they don't have pricing up at the front, right? But if you are going around their site, you're trying to learn more about the ins and outs of what they provide, watching all the great video content that they have, you can find the pricing under Resources and in the Frequently Asked Questions, the FAQ. And you scroll through the FAQ, and then you get down to this really nice section of how we charge and what you get for it. So let's just stop there. I really like this. It's a little bit of a different approach than BKFI in that it's not just up at the front, right? You have to find it. You have to dig through it. And we were talking about this earlier, Stephen. It's really nice. It kind of resembles, as people want to learn more, if they get to this section, they've almost pre-qualified themselves in a sense, right? Because they're looking through all the ins and outs of the site. They want to learn more. They're going to the FAQ. They're reading through that, and then they scroll down and get to this page. You feel as a firm that you've made a better case than if they just see it right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, I think you might have said this yesterday. It's almost like putting the pricing slide at the end of your slide deck presentation. You don't want to start with that, in the first 2 or 3 slides. I mean, you've got to introduce who you are, what you do, who you do it for, why you're qualified, why you're uniquely, positioned to serve their needs, and so on. So introduce your team, and so on and so forth. But we do know that, again, that people are looking for this information. So it kind of makes sense that by that time, once they've consumed the information around your team and your services, how you might meet their challenges, then they're ready to see, okay, wait, so what's this all cost and what do I get for it exactly? What's the relationship going to look like, and so on. So I think this is a great job, kind of positioning it structurally on the website where you don't have to dig too far, but it's not the first one, or it's not the first thing or the second thing you see.
Nice. And just if anyone who's watching, you can see they just have 3 simple questions. How do you justify your fee? What are your fees and how do you charge? And then what fees can I expect? And the what fees I can expect is the 3rd question, and they lay out the percentage of, the charge per percentage of assets in like a tiered manner. But for the what are your fees and how do you charge and how do you justify your fee, really nice language with an embedded video of one of the advisors talking through the thought process behind the pricing and how everything is laid out. So everything just feels super thoughtful and strategic, and it just provides like a really great experience for the person looking at it. There's not the risk of people misunderstanding where the price comes from, right? And so this is why we feel like it's at a different tier than some of the other examples we were showing, because it just goes that much deeper in helping alleviate any confusion from the potential visitor.
Well, and the video adds another dynamic to it, I'd say, right? So you see somebody talking through it. Probably there's a good chance you'll be talking to that individual when you have the discovery call and you go through that. So it's like you're already a little bit familiar with that person, kind of their body language, their personality, how they talk about the question, and so on. So there's like this familiarity relationship piece that you're already starting to build there, I think, with the video added on. So I love that. I love that side of it too. I think that's
one of the things that they do a really nice job of in the video itself, and this, I encourage anyone looking, just go rootfinancial.com and you can go to the FAQ. One of the things they do that's really nice is they talk about the value of a financial planner and what to look for. And so they're really embracing Sheridan's philosophy of trying to educate about what's out there in the industry. So they use the video for that versus going on and on about it in the text itself or in any of the visuals on the site. But it's a really good example of trying to help the visitor understand the landscape better, right? Of like exactly what they're looking for in the industry.
Yeah. Do you want to touch on that topic? Do you want to touch on the chart from Kitces about the value of financial planning advice? We've seen some firms kind of embrace that and do a good job of sharing that.
Yeah, so it's a great graphic from 2015. It's just, I'm sure you probably have seen this if you're an advisor. It's called Quantifying the Value of Financial Planning Advice, and it's just a really good reference point for talking about some of these things and giving you some sort of copy or visual direction. But it goes through income tax benefits, investment planning benefits, estate tax benefits, retirement planning benefits, insurance planning benefits, delegation benefits, and behavioral benefits. And it actually has a chart or a part of the table that shows the potential economic impact, where it tries to connect real dollars and cents to the benefits that they're getting, with the particular service. And so I think that it's a good starting point. I know we've talked with clients about it in terms of like, if you want to create a video or start laying out some website copy around the value of a financial advisor and trying to give some more like quantifiable, tangible strategies that you would offer as connected to pricing, it's a good starting point. It gets tricky on the compliance end when you're, potential economic impact of like the investment, like what you're going to do with the portfolio, but you can find ways to get through the compliance in the way that you articulate it and still like capture what Kitces is trying to do with the chart. Yeah,
that's well said. Yeah, capturing the value that you're delivering as a financial advisor for this person. And depending on their situation and what they're coming to you with, they may already understand that, or they may not have. They may have just like a novice level of understanding. What am I really getting out of this, and how is this financial advisor or financial advisory firm going to help me, the next 40 years of my life, and how is it going to impact my kids' lives, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of education there that I think some advisory firms do a good job with. Others just haven't been able to kind of put it into words, maybe. So that's another piece of it. Yeah, that's not necessarily price, but it's more it's showing the value, right? It's like demonstrating the value in a tangible way.
Nice. Okay, so the next two levels, level 3 and level 4, I would say like are more experimentation, just like ideas, things that we've been talking about. Like level 3, which is the next level, would be like some of the articles we've seen on NerdWallet and Investopedia and Smart Asset, educating those visitors about what else is out there in the industry. What are all the ins and outs of what they can see? What are the advantages and disadvantages to each approach? To fully embrace Sheridan's 5 levels, like that's what you would need to do. We haven't seen that on a firm website, right? To really kind of explain the ins and outs. I know from compliance perspective, they like to have the compliance departments we work with like to have sources. So anytime you talk about what somebody else is doing in the industry, they want you to actually like quantify who is that person, where'd you get that data. So you'd have to really be strategic about how you lay this out. But there could be a lot of really good value in educating people to that level of really going in depth about all the ins and outs of what they can expect. But it would have to be for the right firm, for the right audience, right, Stephen? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I think the opportunity here is massive. If you can thread the needle with compliance, the opportunity to educate is massive. Like showing the difference between, just not even between you as an RIA versus, another RIA, but just the whole landscape, like, the commission-based products, the whole landscape that people are faced with. And I think, like, as a consumer myself, I mean, now, we work with RIAs and we're in the space and we understand a lot more, but I really, before all that, I really had no idea, like, I don't know the difference between a Wells Fargo advisor and an RIA advisor. Like, I mean, to me, it's just they're a financial advisor. They help you out with your money situation. I think a lot of people are like that kind of. Maybe it's just me, actually. Maybe I just have a lizard brain, but I feel like I'm probably not, the only one that has that simplified idea of it. And again, there's just such a massive opportunity there to educate, but do it without slinging mud at the same time and do it in a compliant way. Big challenge. We haven't really seen any firm tackle this. Would love to try it with them, and go down that path, but maybe we will pretty soon. But if you're a client listening to this, we could talk about it on our next weekly call. But yeah, this would be level 4. This would be, level 3. This would be pretty intense. But again, I think a big opportunity.
Yeah, really good bottom of the funnel content that could be repurposed across different channels too, right? Just sharing on socials, sharing an infographic or chart on flat fee fiduciary versus asset-based fiduciary in terms of being charged versus, like you could just come up with all sorts of different things that could be really insightful and helpful. Even just you brought up the word fiduciary. That's kind of a hot. It's kind of a hot word sometimes. And people have different definitions of fiduciary even. Maybe that you could argue they shouldn't, but, what's a fiduciary mean? There's a range there. You could explain that, There's a lot of firms that are fiduciaries, and even in there's a spectrum of what that actually means to the consumer. Yeah. And I think some of our some advisors have tried to tackle this, not exactly the way we're talking about, but they have their own renditions of the 7 questions or the 19 questions or the 9 questions you should ask a financial planner. And they've kind of laying out the certifications and laying out like how the pricing works and, trying to answer those questions for their firm, but also trying to educate others on how to go into a meeting with an advisor, like being equipped with what to say. And what to ask. So I think the desire is there. I think the opportunity is definitely there. It's just a way to figure out how to visually do it and thinking like, hey, does this work with my target audience of who I'm going after? More than likely it probably does, but you just got to always make sure that's in the forefront.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, last level would just be to add a calculator to that. So, I mean, we're adding, there's a lot here, but Steve, you can imagine like this beautifully well articulated site that lays out the entire landscape of the industry, explains how you as a firm fit into that industry with your pricing, where people could actually do their own calculations to see which of the situation applies to them and how that impacts the total output of what fee they can expect. would be beautiful, right? And would work for a lot of other industries, I think. Kind of up for grabs on whether or not that would like be great for the firms that we work with. But think about the trust and transparency and credibility that you would build. Think about how much people would know going into a discovery call if they had gone through that process, and think about how much farther you could get in the sales process with that already out of the way, and them already understanding the value that you provide based on that page or multiple pages.
Yeah, you could have a big BBC, big beautiful calculator. Yeah. I think here, I honestly don't think this is too far off. Like I think, and again, doesn't need to be down to the penny. This isn't a proposal. This isn't a something that's set in stone. Let me just reiterate that. But it could be a calculator that has 15, 20 different toggles, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, and then they can kind of see how that impacts their fee, how it impacts your fee. And honestly, I don't think we're too far away from this though, because think about 5 years from now. I think people are going to have a much better sense, a much better understanding of the space and fees and what they get and what they don't get and what their friends are getting and what they're not getting and so on. There's just more and more information, right? There's more and more tools to consume and digest and turn that information back around to you. And I think if you're not, you have to be at least thinking this direction, I would say. We're not saying like everyone needs to put pricing information on their website tomorrow. We're not saying that, but I think if you just fast forward 5 years and you're just kind of, you haven't thought much about this, and you haven't you haven't taken action to either say, no, that's not for us because of ABC, or yes, this is for us and here's what we did, you're going to be left in the dust, because the way that the internet works, the way these LLMs work, the way that people have become smarter, and they don't want to have to rely on you to give them the answers all the time. So I do think it's something we really have to be thinking about, talking about, and working towards, because if not, I do feel like, your competitors are going to be grabbing the opportunity before you do.
Yeah, we've even talked about this from an LLM / like SEO perspective, right? I know that we were working with that B2B client, and they wanted to take some of the more specific pricing off the website. We pushed back, said, no, let's not do that, because it's getting referenced as the number one across all of our search engine results pages related to pricing for this product, and it's getting pulled in on ChatGPT and Perplexity. It's cited, the actual price information is cited. And we ended up pulling it off, right? Trying to be respectful of our clients' wishes, right? It's their decision at the end of the day. And it was very interesting to see within like a few days' time that Google started referencing an old Pinterest post from 2015 as being a more credible answer than our client's article, because it had more specific pricing. So it just goes to show you, I know that doesn't apply like exactly with the firms, but there's something that ChatGPT especially, and Google overviews, they really like to prioritize numbers as just giving more definition to their results. And so that's a whole nother conversation about like, can you provide, detailed enough price ranges to start appearing in the searches that people have around how to evaluate financial advisory fees. How nice would it be able to say, when someone's trying to evaluate marketing agency prices or ranges for financial advisors, to have Craft Impact as a brand mention being pulled in, as Craft Impact states on their site, how to evaluate marketing agencies. This is what you can expect at this price range versus this price range. You could definitely see that the future of search, your firm being pulled in, how much more credibility that gives, and potentially could drive some visits and leads as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's, in the SaaS space, which is probably ahead of us, by, 3, 5, 7 years, depending on which aspects of it you look at. There's AI tools that go out and find pricing for the softwares that you are evaluating. They come back to you with the full, debrief of, okay, how many seats do you need? What products are you looking at? Here's the pros and cons, and it's done in 30 seconds. I mean, so that all has changed even in the last year, where people used to have to schedule a call with the software sales rep, say, hey, software sales rep, here's what I'm looking for, and you go through this whole negotiation process, and it's a long-winded thing, and you do the same thing with 3-4 other companies, whatever you're comparing. That can all be done now with AI. It's like they're going out and just these agents are doing it for you. And again, like I think we're a little bit behind that in the financial services space. It's not the same. We're not saying it's the same. It's a different relationship. It's a different service model. It's a different product. You're offering your expertise. You're offering your relationship and your emotional intelligence. It's different, but we're just saying that that's kind of the direction that we see it going, and we need to be watching that and trying to position our firms in that same way.
Nice. All right. Well, I think we got into a lot of good depth. I mean, my big takeaway from this discussion is transparency, clarity builds trust, and like that's everything. Just a foundation of content marketing, which I know you and I and our entire team ascribes to. And so, looking forward to any potential conversations this generates with our clients and learning more about how firms are doing this all throughout the space. So we'd love to see if anyone has any great examples of this being done that we didn't reference today. Would love to hear. Yeah, well said. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show. I think we're up to about 75,000 subscribers now, so we'd love to keep building on that, and really appreciate you tuning in. Somewhere in there, right? I don't know. I'm not 70,000 subscribers.
Analytics guy.
Yeah.
We're somewhere up there.
Well, you leave the data to me, I would say.
Yeah. So I think we're in that range. Anyhow, thanks for listening. Hopefully it was helpful to some level, and we'll be back with more soon.